This guy is a beloved actor, environmental activist, and he grew up the son of a legendary actor also, Oscar-winning actor. So he's chronicled a bunch of the stories and some reflections on his life, which has just been wild, in a new book. Here he is visiting with us now, Ed Begley Jr., everybody. Come on.
Mark, so good to see you and to hear you. It's lovely.
You too, my friend. Look at you. So the new book, we'll mention it a couple times, but To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It, a memoir. Tell us where the title came from.
Wonderful actor Dick Stahl said that line, not on stage, as he said many funny lines and not in front of a camera, which he did the same. Dick Stahl was very funny, but he found himself in Asia. He was rushing to get there to get to this ashram, and he actually said the lines while hopping in a cab when he finally got there very late in distress. He went to the Temple of Tranquility and step on it. So I thought that ironic and wonderful, and I vowed if I ever wrote a book, that would be the title.
Oh, it is wonderful, and your life is wonderful, and it's also very honest. You grew up in Hollywood, the son of a really well-known Hollywood actor. I mean, brilliant actor, not just a star. I mean, someone who was revered for his acting chops and for his performances. And what you talk about in the book, as I recall, is that you really kind of expected a career to come to you. You really, I think, give us an unvarnished look at somebody who grew up in the scene and thought the scene would just come to them.
Yeah, it's probably true in many other fields, law and medicine and sports and anything you can imagine, that the son of or the daughter of or the cousin of thinks, well, that sure looks easy what my dad or mom does. Let me do that. Having no idea what kind of work they put into it to get to that point where they're successful, as my dad was as an actor. And he was first a radio actor. He was a stage actor, won a Tony for that, won an Oscar for Sweet Bird of Youth in 1962 for, Best Supporting Actor. Great guy. And he made it look so easy. I was like impatient all the time. Thank God I never said it to him. I would have gotten the back of his hand. But I thought, get me a series for God's sake. Can't you get me on Gunsmoke or Wagon Train or one of those shows? Get me on Perry Mason for God's sake. I don't want just a one-line thing. I want to be a regular. Why aren't you getting me work, Dad? And finally, I started doing some training, that's what you need to get work. Don't misunderstand me. Being the son of anybody, or the daughter of anybody, the cousin of somebody might help you because they'll remember your name. And they certainly remembered my name because of my dad. And more importantly, they had something to talk about on the job interview, which is what a casting session is. It's a job interview. They're relaxing, going, I worked with your dad in Philco Playhouse. We did some wonderful other radio shows. We did Aldrich Family and Richard Diamond, Private Detective. Top of page 8, Eddie. Good luck, pal. They're kind of rooting for you. You still have to deliver. You have to be good enough to get the part and to perform the part. But the door is open. You got your foot and your shoulder in there when you really think about it.
You also talk about how really you were just getting the one-offs, and in the frustration, you were knocking around Hollywood. I mean, it's weird to read about your knocking around. God, I mean, you hung out with the glitterati. You hung out with people. You were down at the Troubadour, and the other thing you speak of, and you can pick up any of this stuff, Ed. I almost don't know where to start. Your life really runneth over with all of these rich stories and this rich environment. But you also talk about how you were out there partying with everybody, but you were a really partier. You had a real problem with alcohol.
Other people, it was kind of a pastime, but for me, it was a real dedicated career in alcoholism. I didn't realize it 2 years later, Mark. I set out to be an alcoholic because I saw Peter O'Toole and I saw Richard Burton and I saw Oliver Reed and these guys. And the word was to do that wonderful work they did. Forget about RADA and going and studying. I didn't pay any attention to that. Didn't want to hear about that, to be honest. But they got drunk sometimes on stage and on camera. On films, they would be slightly tipsy or more on some of these movies. I heard tell that this is the kind of job I want. If that's in the job description, sign me up. And it was very much like that. If you read Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, if you didn't do whatever somebody had in their pocket, you were considered out of it. What is he, a narc or something? Here, let's go. Here, go again. That's the way it was back then.
Now, you make a good point. There was a lot of social pressure, in effect, to continue in this lifestyle. Yeah.
So when I got sober in 1979, it was like I probably lost a few friends, but more importantly, I gained some better friends, a better class of friends, and kept some of them that were solid citizens to begin with. They weren't quite as dedicated to alcoholism as me, and they supported me, and supported me on my way to getting better.
You talk about, I remember a couple of times, at least one, like really, where you're really hammered and you get pulled over by the cops, as I recall.
Yeah.
And this looked like it was going to be your end, and somehow you skated on that.
Christmas Eve, 1975. I'm at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. I've already been to Dantonis for the evening. I drank a quart of vodka, then a bottle of Chardonnay, took a half of Quaalude, then another half and another half, and got in the car and hoped to drive home. And I just ran into these cars, stopped the way I should have been stopped at the red light at San Vicente and Sunset there. And I ran into them. And right next to all the cars I ran into, there was a sheriff's department car there looking like, are we filming something tonight? And they didn't tell me. What is that? Is that a stunt driver? What? You did that right next to us? Are you kidding me? And I got out of the car. Now suddenly I'm not on Quaaludes or anything. I'm still on it, but I have so much adrenaline. I'm 26 years old. I'm like, my heart is pounding like this. I go, guys, I'm going to take care of all this. It is entirely my fault. Let me talk to these officers. 1 second. Gentlemen, do me a favor. Cuff me and take me in. What, have you been drinking? So, yeah, I had a couple of drinks. Guys, it's Christmas Eve. Do it. But I'm telling you, I'm going to sue Toyota Motor Company. I've been pumping these brakes since back at Doheny. They're defective. And if you arrest me, it will help my case. I'm begging you guys, take me right the hell in. Reverse psychology, whatever the hell, like, oh, he looks like my cousin. They let me go. They not only didn't arrest me, they let me drive my car home.
Unbelievable. I mean, maybe your best acting performance that was never fully recognized,
I think that definitely was. That's the way it was. But the guys that I ran into, the three African-American guys in the car in front of me, I think if they had run into me, I don't think they would have gotten off so easy.
Yeah, no, that's certainly
I kind of look like the guys that stopped me.
Right.
Right.
I remember I'm trying to think of when exactly it happened, like what period of your life. But there you are, younger Ed Begley Jr. next to Nicholson, who is a pal of yours. You talk about him in the book. In fact, there's a critical moment with you and Jack Nicholson on a set that you speak of in the book.
I'm very lucky to have known him. I met him through a great friend and producer, Harry Gittes, great guy. And Jack is very much a great guy, too. This is the 80s here. But in the 70s, I did a movie with him. I actually called him up and asked him for a favor to be in a movie. And he put me in a wonderful Western that he directed and starred in called Going South. I was in that movie, and I finally now, I wasn't just a one-line part. I had, like a dozen lines in the movie or something like it. And so now I was expected to do another level of work than just be in the background and drunk. And so I did my first shot at a close-up, and Jack said, "Is that all you're going to give me?" And I was devastated. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He was doing it to get some sort of life going on behind my vacant eyes. And so my heart started pounding like that night on Sunset Boulevard. And I did the same thing. I used the adrenaline to my advantage, like jujitsu, use that energy, that's going on to your advantage. And I was panic stricken in hell because, my friend wasn't pleased with what I was doing, and he was correct to be so. I was just kind of relaxed in front of the camera from that day, 1977 to the decade before it when I started as an actor. I was just kind of mostly relaxed. And that's not a good thing in a movie to just be relaxed all the time. It doesn't sell well. So I used that fear to my advantage, and he gave me some other tips, and he got a take that he liked, and we went on to the next scene. But he helped me immeasurably.
You talk in the book about how that was like a real galvanizing moment for you, where you just because you're hearing it from not only your friend but somebody who you have such immense respect for as an actor. It was
no one I respected more. No one he was such a great actor. Long before I met him, I saw him in those Roger Corman movies. I went, who is that guy in Hell's Angels on Wheels? Who is that guy in this movie and that? Then finally Easy Rider, and Five Easy Pieces and all these great movies that he did. He became a big star. And somewhere around there, I met him through Harry Gittes and Cindy Williams, my dear friend Cindy, and became friends with Jack. He was so nice to me. I guess he liked my old man. He never met him, but he liked his work on screen and who he was. My dad was a factory worker that made it good as an actor in his 40s. So I think Jack liked that story too. My dad was from Hartford. He was from New Jersey. Jack was. And so they would have been friends had they been, together more.
Skipping all around Ed Begley Jr. because the book is filled with all this. All of these women you were involved with, and I don't mean to make it sound too decadent and fun, but there was a decadent fun part of your life, and you even end up partying. I believe, at the Spahn Ranch, which was why is the Spahn Ranch important to Ed Begley Jr. and historically?
I'll tell you why, because I went there to just smoke a joint with my pal James Jeremias. We're still friends to this day. He had a friend, David Curlin, who lived in a tree house next to the saloon. And we ran out of dope, so we went up and we, shared a joint with these people, these hippies that lived up the hill from my friend David, James's friend David.
And who else lived there at Spahn Ranch?
Well, that's the thing. There wasn't a real saloon that David lived in a treehouse next to. It was a movie set called the Spahn Ranch, which is where the Manson gang lived. We smoked a joint with the Manson gang, not knowing that there was a Manson gang. They were just a bunch of hippies smoking a joint at that point. I don't know that they had planned to do what they horribly, monsters that they were, did. But at that point, we didn't realize it until a year later. The pictures were in the newspaper. Called up James. Aren't these the people that we met up at the Spahn Ranch with your pal? Yeah. Absolutely, that's them. And so it was just the horror of knowing I've been around some gods and I've been around some monsters, and these are definitely monsters.
It's weird, though, that they, have there's nothing about them in your visit with them that would have suggested that they would even be capable of something so horrifying.
No, one of them had some music, that he was trying to promote. And he asked, because he recognized my name, Begley, related to Ed Begley. He said, yeah, that's my dad. He wanted some help with that. And I didn't really know a lot of people in music then. I know people in TV and films a bit. So I said, well, I'll get back to you on that, and never did, of course. And I'm glad I didn't give him my phone number or my address.
Saint Elsewhere, Ed Begley Jr., that was the big turning point in your career.
It was. And what's interesting to note, as is the case in many important junctures in my life, what I wanted was not nearly as good as what I got, Mark. I wanted to play the part, as anyone would, of a regular character on Saint Elsewhere when they were casting the pilot. Not a foot had been shot yet. They hadn't started shooting at all. I wanted the part of a regular Dr. Peter White is what I wanted. I didn't get that. Wonderful actor got that. Terrence Knox got that part. I did not. They threw me a bone and gave me the small part of Dr. Ehrlich. He had like one or two lines in the pilot was all. The part of Dr. Peter White got killed in the second or third season, dead and gone. I lasted the whole 6 years, and it was one of the most powerful, one of the most well-regarded characters in the show. It really did very, very well. Very popular characters, what I'm trying to say, with the viewers.
Yeah, and you're acting with look at that troupe of actors. I mean, everybody, went on to some pretty substantial work.
Great Denzel Washington, the great David Morse, the great Howie Mandel. I love Mark Harmon, fabulous actor, fabulous guy. Stephen First, Sagan Lewis is down there at the bottom to the right of the screen. Just all wonderful people, but how lucky might have worked with them, and great writers like John Macias, and Channing Gibson and Chick Egley, and directors like, Mark Tinker. We just had the best of the best at every turn. Bruce Paltrow, though, was the guy that changed my life, giving me that 1 or 2 line part that blossomed into something wonderful.
Yes, your life has had those moments, those beats where the bounce just hits perfectly, where maybe what you wanted doesn't happen, and it's a blessing that it doesn't happen.
Every time.
Yeah. After Saint Elsewhere, your life changes how? I mean, obviously financially it changes, and but from an acting career standpoint, you still have to audition, but you audition in a different way, or you don't need to audition anymore, or there's scripts being sent to you. How does it change?
There's some things you don't need to audition for, which was a new thing for me. I had to audition for everything before that. That's not true. I did something that's not true. My pal, Paul Schrader, gave me several parts, fairly large parts of movies without any audition. Nor did Jack make me audition. So I'm a liar right away here, but thank God I caught it. I get it right in the book,
and what did Paul Schrader do that you were in?
He did Cat People. He did the first one he gave me a great part in was Blue Collar, a wonderful movie with Harvey Keitel, Richard Pryor, Yaphet Kotto. I was in that movie and had no audition. So after St. Elsewhere, I rarely had an audition unless it was a really big movie or really, big TV series. I didn't have to audition for much. If you get a show like Hill Street Blues or St. Elsewhere and you're on 6 years, or Hill Street Blues was on, I think, 9 or something like that, you get a show like that as a regular character, you've got to really screw up to not work the rest of your life. Now, maybe in dinner theater, in Dubuque, but still you're going to have work for the rest of your life if you don't screw it up, and run into a van full of kids with a needle in your arm or something, do something really stupid.
Right. You went from worst to first, and it was a question of just kind of keeping the car on the road at that point,
Exactly.
doing the real work. And by then, you'd really understood the work that had to be done. In other words, you had redoubled your acting chops and your focus by then, and even your substance abuse issue.
I did with the help of Bruno Kirby, a wonderful actor. We started off together wanting the same thing, just to get jobs, just to get work. But he had a different dedication than me right away. He really studied more than me and encouraged me to study more. And he went back and studied with Peggy Fury and other wonderful people, Stella Adler. And so I went back and studied some more and got better. Because when I really began, again, my dad made it look so easy. I had this wake me when I'm famous attitude, not willing to put in the work. When I finally started not, learning my lines in the makeup chair before you're about to shoot the scene. How about learning them, let's say the night before even, I just was always partying and didn't have that dedication. After St. Elsewhere, I began to get a better dedication and then work, with other people that really helped me, like Jack helped me. And, there's some other people that really, really helped me a lot.
It's just so interesting because you are now this guy who's so grateful. You're so gracious. You seem to have just the opposite of someone who would say, or whether you'd literally say it or just think it, wake me when I'm famous. So this is a real watershed change in your life that came as a result, I think, of all of this constellation of events you talk about in the book coming together. And then post St. Elsewhere, you were, a real actor and a gracious guy. This is where the sort of Ed Begley Jr. 2, part deux comes in. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's that moment that you have if you're a spoiled brat in any way, big or small, and I certainly was, where you realize your dad was right. He said, okay, that's all fine, Eddie. I understand you want to do this. You want to be in a TV show, but you got to put in the work. I put in the work. I worked at a factory and I did, at the Guy Hedlund Players. I worked in Hartford, Connecticut. I did small radio parts. You got to do that. Just work, work, work. Yeah, Dad, that's for you. For me, I need to party and be loose and relaxed. And then maybe I'll learn my lines the morning of.
All right, now you were in one of my favorite movies ever with Alan Arkin and Peter Falk.
Oh, The In-Laws. I love that movie.
Oh my God, Ed Begley Jr. I love that movie.
Such a great movie to be friends with.
How did that happen?
Peter and Alan.
The call to be in that movie.
I just got an interview, through my agent to go and. What had I done before that? I'd done something before. I guess I was in Going South before that. I was definitely in Blue Collar before that. So this is 1978. And I go and interview for that part and get it. And I was also doing at the same time with John Carpenter, this movie Elvis, with Kurt Russell playing Elvis. So, but here's the thing. You see me there in this. And actually, this is interesting. My hair looks blonde there, doesn't it?
Yeah, lighter.
I think they've recorrected it back to my right color. The story I'm about to tell you, I did this thing with Kurt Russell where he played Elvis and I played his drummer. So they had to make my hair dark. And in so doing, they promised they'd bring it back to my blonde color because the next morning after I shot, with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, next morning I had to be on The In-Laws on that movie. And so I wake up in the morning and I'm as red as Opie, from Ron Howard. I'm Ron Howard red. I'm just totally red. What am I going to do? And I had to go to the director and say, this is just temporary, which was a lie. It was totally permanent now until my hair grew out. But I think this guy might be a redhead. Can I leave it in for this movie? And thank God the director said, Arthur Hill said, yeah, that's a good idea. Leave him a redhead. But here, when they came out with the recent DVD, they turned the color wheel a bit and they made me back. Well, Ed Begley's a blonde. The color's a little off in the Panavision negative. So we'll bring it back. That looks pretty blonde to me. But it was pretty red when I shot the thing.
Yeah, it's reddish. It's reddish there.
Yeah, I think it is. You're right. Your eyes are better than mine. Yeah.
But it's lighter. But I get what you're saying. That is interesting. You are in this movie like this, as I recall a few times. You're on the phone to him, and so you shoot all that stuff, Ed. You shoot it all in one day, and it's all the phone conversations, or how does that work? Do you recall?
Yeah, that day there in the office, that was one day. At another day when I come to their rescue, where they're about to be shot, they're in a firing squad, they're about to be shot. I come at the very last minute because there was bad traffic or something. And then I come again at the wedding at the end of the movie. I have 3 nice scenes, and I had maybe a dozen lines or something like that. To work with Peter Falk and Alan Arkin was just a gift beyond description because I admired them so very much. It was like Jack kind of respect. I just thought the world of them. And I later got to be friendly with Marlon Brando, as I note there. I'm working with the incomparable Meryl Streep. How lucky am I? Where did I go right? That's what I need to know. Where did I go right? And so I just kept working with these great people. And I don't know. I'll be real honest with you, Mark. I don't know how it happened.
Well, you really did. Not only, yeah, you end up in all of these great projects and work with these great people, and even into your later stages of the career. I mean, you end up in these projects that become sort of cornerstones of new series television or streaming, however you want to characterize it. For example, a Better Call Saul.
Right. What a show.
Yeah, exactly. What a show. Like, it's not just a series, it's a show that is in the zeitgeist,
6 Feet Under, for God's sake. I was on that wonderful show working with the incomparable Francis Conroy, and Alan Ball. I don't know how it happened. I'm the luckiest guy. I won the lottery. I didn't even buy a ticket, I think. Someone slipped a ticket into my pocket.
So on these shows that you mentioned, 6 Feet Under, Better Call Saul, again, just from a process standpoint, you end up, and there you are, in Better Call Saul. They call you and it's just done. You don't have to read anything, or would you come in, we can talk about it. It's any of that. Is that how it goes down?
This was such a big fish that anybody would go and, cut bait for this job, because they had already done the wonderful Breaking Bad series, just one of my favorite shows of all time. Many people have it in that position on their list. So I get a call from Vince Gilligan, who I worship. He said, there's a part, would you just mind? We just would like to hear the way you might interpret it. So they have this script, and I read this script. And then Vince says, you give me a real problem, because I wanted to just cast my dear friend Michael McKean. We worked together on X-Files, and I promised him one day there's going to be a great part I'm going to write for you, and it's this part that I really had Michael in mind, but you read so good, I got to think about this. He didn't think about it long, because Michael McKean is a far better actor than me, and I have no delusions about that. And he gave it to Michael. But now the story begins, Mark, because what he says to me is the following. He says, but we're going to come up with another part for you, says Vince Gilligan. And it's going to be a nice part. Just wait to hear from us. We're going to write a part for you. That never happens, Mark, ever. When any great director like Vince, great producer, great writer like Vince says something like that, they have no malintentions. They just have to do their job and do the show. They're not remembering you and this promise that they made. But Vince Gilligan is like nobody you've ever met. He's as nice as he is talented, and he has an incredible memory. He indeed gave me this part of Cliff Maine in this wonderful show, and I didn't have to read for that. He's one of a kind. You never met it. I hope you meet him one day if you haven't already. He's just an extraordinary writer, extraordinary person. He's like nobody you ever met.
Just a digression, it's funny because you mentioned him. I remember seeing an interview, I thought it was quite striking that he didn't really have an ending for Breaking Bad. And he got all the writers in a room, he said, and they all just had to beat out how they were going to tie up all of these loose ends. I thought that was just extraordinary. I mean, what an admission, And they all went to their, and then they went to the process.
And it's not just, him doing it. The wonderful Peter Gould and he have collaborated on both Breaking Bad and on Better Call Saul. And he's a dear friend and a great writer and a great producer. And he was part of that whole process with me getting that part. So I'm indebted for life to Peter and to Vince both.
Hey, there you are. Let me just, in our last minute or so with you, you had a relationship with Peter Falk, didn't you?
I did. I love that man. We had the same birthday, September 16th, a few years apart, but the same birthday.
Just one of my favorite actors. Obviously, Columbo was a great character that he helped create and burnish into the culture for so long. But he also, he did so much with Cassavetes as an actor. He was someone who seemed to have a breadth of work. I was always curious, though, because I was such a Peter Falk fan, and I never had the pleasure of meeting him. I wonder if you could just share a Peter Falk thought or two, because I just am such a fan of his.
We were on the in-laws in Cuernavaca, Mexico. I was really wondering, what does Peter think of me? I hope he likes me. I'd done a Columbo, a small part in a Columbo, and I wonder if he likes me. So we're there having Thanksgiving dinner. And Peter knocks in his glass and says, I got to tell you something. To be here in Cuernavaca is most wonderful experience to be with all of you, Alan. To work with you is a classic moment in my life. and Arthur Hill, your incredible director. That blonde guy is a total pain in the ass. I don't even know his name. I don't know how we got a job on this, and it was brilliantly funny. And of course, he meant it lovingly, and it was the greatest moment that he even knew who I was and cared enough to make a derogatory statement about me.
Yeah, to include you. That's really funny.
We became great friends with Shara Denise and him. Rochelle and I spent many birthdays with his wife Shara and he, because we had the same birthday. We shared it together. So I'm just once again, blessed infinitely.
Really something. Give me a little something on your environmental activism, which is a big part of your life. You really, made that a calling card associated with Ed Begley Jr. In addition to your work, and you're still working, just being so very impressive here in the latter part of your career, which could go on for a long, long time this way. But you've also worked hard to put environmentalism into a lot of the stuff that you do.
Yeah, it's really a passion with me. I started back in 1970, and it's important to note because there's plenty of bad news, plenty of challenges we have the environment, and I'm not shying away from any of it. We have climate change and the loss of coral reefs and amphibians that are dying, many other species. But for 1 second, just remember, even though we have 4 times the cars in LA and millions of people, 4 times the cars and millions more people since 1970, we have a fraction of the smog. It's much, much better in nearly all of LA. Now, we still have people that live near the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles that are breathing polluted air. Yes, we're going to get help for those people near the shipping centers, the fulfillment centers, and the freeway interchanges. Those people need help, but we've proven that we can do it. So it's a big ticket item. We can do it. Ozone depletion was a big problem, but the ozone hole is not the same. It's not bigger. It's smaller because we banned CFCs. Hudson River isn't as polluted as it used to be in the 60s. The Cuyahoga River does not catch fire. We've done a lot of good things. Let's stay the course and do what works, and we can do this together.
What a great run that was. You just, to me, made the argument so powerfully for why you must have regulation on so many toxins that otherwise would just be dumped into the environment, air, soil, water. And
an environmental radical by the name of Richard Nixon, don't forget, is the one who signed the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. So that's why the Cuyahoga River doesn't catch fire. It's because of people who reach across the aisle and work together for the common good. And who doesn't want clean air for their children and clean water for their children? I think Republican and Democrat both want that. So it's something we have to do together.
Lisa says, Ed, we're always happy when you appear on screen. You're one of our faves. And,
thank you, Lisa.
This from Walter. Did you know that Ed Begley Jr. was on a show called My Three Sons? That is true, right, Ed Begley Jr.? You were.
My first job, my first day in show business. I went after I was done, left my makeup on and did my paper route. I had a paper route, which was my real job. That was my day job. I left my makeup on hoping somebody would recognize me. They hadn't even processed the film yet. I was like, I hope somebody recognized me from television with a paper route and makeup.
Oh, that's just marvelous. Really, really great. Look, I wish you the best with the book. Again, To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It, a memoir by Ed Begley Jr. I think you are a gift, my friend, and it is so great to spend time with you whenever. And your book is a great read. It's a page-turner, great stories, and what a life. I wish you all the best. I can't wait to see you again soon.
You're such a friend, Mark. It's always great to talk to you.
Ed Begley Jr., everybody. Right on. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.